Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 120, featuring the top 5 Dax episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are breaking down one of the most beloved characters in all of Star Trek, at least by me, I think by our guests as well. We are returning to our series of character breakdown episodes, and we're doing our top 5 Dax episodes. This is the 13th time we've done a deep dive on Star Trek characters on TrekRanks. And the last time we did this, we did our top 5 Crusher episodes, where we got a little tricky. And we did that kind of multi-layered topic, so we could you could pick Beverly or Wesley. And we're kind of doing that again. We're doing Dax this time, which means she can obviously... or they can obviously be represented in quite a few different ways on Deep Space Nine. Most notably, of course, with Jadzia Dax and, of course, Ezri Dax. So we're going to get into that in our diagnostic cycle and break down Dax a little bit. But first, let's introduce our guest this evening for this topic. First up, returning for her 13th appearance on TrekRanks, one of the co-hosts of the great Snap Trek podcast. It's our friend Jenn Tifft. Welcome back, Jenn.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Good to have you back. And our second guest is making her TrekRanks debut from the East Coast Corridor. It's Ariel Kaye. Ariel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so glad to have connected with you and have you on the show. So I want to hear your Trek origin story, because I have no idea what it is. So let's hear your Trek backstory and kind of, have you seen it all? Where did you start? How did you get into it? We want to know all the details.
Yeah, sure. So I'm definitely on the younger end here, and I'm about to make that obvious because I actually grew up watching Enterprise on the background at my dad's house. And my first memory of Trek is being terrified that there was a Xindi reptilian in my closet. And thankfully that didn't.
I think we all were. I mean, I know I was. I was like 45. And I was like,
okay.
Anyway.
Glad the insectoids for me, man.
Oh, yeah. Insectoids. Yeah, true.
All of them. And
right.
the Suliban. All of them. But yeah, thankfully that didn't scare me away because I started watching Next Generation and Voyager and totally fell in love. I actually only got around to watching Deep Space Nine a few years ago, but now it's 100% my favorite series. And I am totally up to date through Discovery and have seen just about everything. So I love all of Trek.
You know, the amount of times people say that about Deep Space Nine, it's. I'm telling you, I ask people all the time what their favorite series is when I find out they're a Trekkie. And I'd be surprised if it wasn't 70% of the people said Deep Space Nine. It's amazing. It really is. Okay, that's not what the show's about, though. That is a fantastic backstory. I love it, and your perspective on this is going to be super, super cool. So let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating? Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
General order number 1 of the TrekRanks charter is that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek. And as our good friend, the Vulcan Master, likes to remind us each week, the main driver of all of our discussion here at the TrekRanks podcast is...
infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things we love about Trek, and we love it all from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Short Trek, Star Trek Picard, Lower Decks, soon to be Prodigy, and Strange New Worlds. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 809 episodes of Star Trek, which currently translates through Season 2, Episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks. And one final reminder, we use episodes as a shorthand, but the 13 films are always in play. But of course, that's not really in play tonight.
I boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
We appreciate that, Mr. Kim. And you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, to wrap it up, Jenn and Ariel, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Jenn?
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Eda Quarks, and my podcast is Snap Trek. And on Snap Trek, we like to take 2 episodes that kind of tangentially relate to each other somehow and pit them against each other in a little fun little contest. And we also write some questionable Star Trek poetry. So give it a go if you're interested in that sort of thing.
Really, they're just talking about the things they love about those 2 episodes. It's
Absolutely,
awesome.
Yeah.
Ariel. Ariel, how about you? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Ariel Kaye 18, ArielleK 18. I'd love to chat about Star Trek.
Love it. Twitter is the best for Star Trek connection. All right, let's get into our level 1 diagnostic to get into today's show.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
So for this week's diagnostic cycle, there are 3 quick items I want to cover here. First up is our character series roll call. This is the 13th time we've done a character deep dive, and I just love to rattle off lists. So here are the 13 characters we've done. We did Kirk in our premiere episode. We did Icheb. Jen, you were on that one when we kind of added him to our WTF moments.
Absolutely.
At the end of that episode. Then we've also done Data, Sisko, Kira, T'Pol, Neelix, Nog, Odo, Picard, Janeway was our 100th episode. And the last one was that 2-for-1 with Crusher. So that's 13. And of those 13, this is going to be our 5th character deep dive from Deep Space Nine. So more than a third of the characters. So we're going to have to start balancing that out after this one. All right. Second, I wanted to talk about Dax. So Jadzia and Ezri are obviously completely on the table for selection today. And honestly, if you want to choose Curzon or Duran Dax, that's fine too.
I'm Jadzia Dax, science officer. Dax? Are you related to the great Curzon Dax? Curzon was the last host for my symbiont. I carry his memories.
There's a lot of ways to look at Dax. So let's go through a quick Dax roll call just to refresh everyone's memories on all the hosts for Dax through the years. So started with Leela. Then I should just play the clip of Quark when he was trying to get this straight in Rejoined, I think. Leela, Tobin, Emily, Audred, Tarius, Duran, Curzon, Jadzia, Ezri, and then the 2 wild cards, of course, are Verdad, that jerk, and who stole Dax, and Yedrin, the alternate timeline Dax. All right, and finally, as part of our normal character episodes, I'd like to ask our guests for one word that best describes that character. So because we're being a little tricky with Jadzia and Ezri Dax being covered here in multiple ways, I'm going to ask Jenn and Ariel to give us one word to describe both Jadzia and Ezri. So Jenn, you're up first. Without getting into your prime directive, what is one word you would use to describe Jadzia and then Ezri?
All right. So first off, Jadzia. Jadzia is unconstrained.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So basically, Jadzia's taken the wisdom of the 7 lifetimes that she's been given, and she's absorbed all those experiences so completely that she's no longer beholden to anything. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have to be pragmatic or make the decision that's the most conservative or comfortable, because she has literally been there, done that with everything. She doesn't have anything just to preserve.
Yep.
So the same way we do. She exists outside of that time. She takes advantage of the fact that she kind of exists outside of time. And as a result, she makes bold choices. She's very confident. She has a lust for life, and she's tough as hell. And she does what she wants when she wants. But it doesn't make her selfish. It just makes her unconstrained. It just makes her free. And she's free and unconstrained, and it's refreshing. And I love that about her.
Perfect description. How about Ezri?
Ezri is earnest. I picked for her. And I picked earnest for Ezri because in everything she does, she has a sincerity about her and also a determination in everything she takes on. She's brave as hell. From the very beginning, we see her, from the beginning, even before she's a Dax, making the decision to save Dax's life and become the host. And she takes that on, and this is the challenge of her life. and she takes that on with a determination and a sincerity, and that sincerity and determination, that earnestness shows up in how she handles being joined, in how she helps others, how she's trying to develop her career, how she fights in the Dominion War and everything she does. And I think that's one of her outstanding characteristics is her earnestness.
Perfection. We probably should just stop right there, but we're going to keep going. Ariel, how about you? What are your 2 words for Jadzia and Ezri?
Well, I'm not sure I can follow that, but I tried so hard to come up with an intelligent or eloquent word for Jadzia, and I kept coming back to the same thing, the first thing that I thought of, which is just badass.
I love it.
I love it. Absolutely.
There are so many strong women in Star Trek, but really not all of them can wield a bat lift. Like, she is just a badass. That's Jadzia.
Yep.
And for Ezri, I actually went about it the same way you did. I went with determined, because Ezri has something to prove, and she uses everything in her to work as hard as she possibly can to prove it. She got thrown into a situation and she handled it incredibly. Even when she's nervous, she shows some incredible determination.
Okay, I love those 4 words. So for me, I kept it. I went with kind of the first thing I thought of, and I want to make sure this for Jadzia, I picked acerbic, but I mean that in the best way possible, because she's just so witty and forthright. I just love the way she interacts with people. Yeah, so witty and forthright is kind of. I like acerbic that. Can have a negative connotation, but I'm erasing that part of it. I just like that she is always quick and forthright. And
I'm always going to say too, with that acerbic, that it does have a negative connotation, but the way it applies to her non-negatively is she's very observant about people, so she knows exactly what to say, whether it's a biting comment or just or not, or the nice thing to say, but yeah,
because sometimes it is really biting. So.
Yeah, but she knows exactly how to get you.
Yeah, exactly. So
I like that about her. That's a good one.
and for Ezri, I thought about kind of where you guys were in terms of her being determined and earnest. But the thing that I always think about with Ezri is it's just whirlwind is my word. It's just, there's always a whirlwind around her. It's like whether it's her just adjusting to becoming Dax, or all the kind of things they put her through in that 1 year of Deep Space Nine. And even I think of Nicole DeBera this way, as imagine being that actor coming into that role, into that cast, into that series. You get 1 year with all those storylines and all the things going on and having that kind of impact and being that successful. It's amazing to me. So I always think of that character. It's just, there's always a whirlwind around that character.
Yeah.
And I think about it in terms of that 1 year. Ezri Dax doesn't feel like a 1 year character, but that's all we got. That's all we got of that character.
Yeah, and Jadzia Dax is my favorite character of all time, and Ezri, Nicole DeBoer took her place. I should have disliked her,
right?
But I love her. Yes. Almost instantly. I fell in love with Ezri, and it is a whirlwind, and it is so interesting to think it was only 1 season, based on how well I feel we know her. I mean, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it feels like Ezri has more character development in 1 season than a lot of characters get in their entire series run. So yeah, definitely.
Exactly.
Oh,
it's truly amazing with all the things going on that they accomplished that. Okay, so let's get into our Prime Directives.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
All right, Jenn and Ariel. About the Prime Directives, before we get into this, just a reminder that when we always call these top 5 character episodes, but really we always say that can be defined however you want. So you can do a major episode about that character, or you can just focus on maybe one little small moment in an episode that doesn't feature that character in a big way. So we just call it episodes for shorthand, but obviously anything is in play based on your prime directive. So Jenn, how did you break it all down for Dax?
Okay, so for me, when you asked us to come up with a word for Jadzia and a word for Ezri, and I thought about how different those two characters are and how different, even what we know about Curzon, and all the other hosts. But I tried to think about what was the same. Like, what do we know about Dax in general?
Yeah.
And Jadzia says something really interesting to Benjamin in an episode. She says, after 356 years and 7 lifetimes, I still lead with my heart. Ooh. And I think, to me, that applies to every single Dax we meet or hear about, not just in Jadzia and Ezri, Curzon too. And it's the Dax defining characteristic to me. And it manifests itself in different ways in each host, but it's always there. So the episodes I picked, I tried to think about that and tried to think about showcasing different Daxes, but also how different Daxes displaying that characteristic, I guess.
Interesting. I don't respond to this because we'll probably hear it in your picks, but my first thought is, does Curzon lead with his heart? But then the way you framed it, the way you said that you feel like they do it in their own way. So I look forward to hearing that. That is awesome. Ariel, how about you? How did you break it all down for Dax?
Yeah, so I went about it in a pretty different way. I had a huge list that I had to narrow down. So I decided I would focus in on character growth and character development. So the episodes I wanted to pick had to showcase a major moment or a major change in a character. And that could just be the way they interact with another character or something along those lines. And at that point, I still had a ridiculous number of episodes. So I there are a lot of great episodes. So I narrowed it down from there by asking myself, is this absurdly obvious? Which hurt a bit because I had to get rid of some very good episodes, and you'll see them in my secondary systems. That's how I went about this.
Yeah, perfect. All right. I love your guys' 2 prime directives because mine was, I couldn't get focused. I was like just thinking of, my normal brainstorm of great moments and then obviously big episodes of that feature Dax. And I didn't want this to be a list of big greatest hits, although I really had a tough time moving away from those. I did in a few places. So, and I also left out one major thing that I really wanted to include, and it's a massive bummer for me, but we'll find that out in the secondary system. But so basically I was just brainstorming and ended up, I did the classic Moorhouse TrekRanks. I just picked 5 things I want to talk about. So that is where I'm at with Dax. All right, let's do this first Cadecaton. Introduce us to the new order of things.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Cadecaton. As always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will reveal their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each name our top 5 Dax episode and the specific reasons we're highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes.
Perfect.
Okay, Jenn, we're going to have duplicates today. There has to be. So, Jenn, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Dax episodes?
She's a Dax. Sometimes they don't think. They just do.
All right, my number 5 pick. 5 words in a hashtag. Been there, done almost everything. Hashtag something new. This is season 3, episode 8, Meridian. And What
a start.
Yes, I am very glad to have a chance to defend this episode because I'm pretty sure I'm in a very small minority of people who enjoy this one. And I'm not sure why. I'll be interested to hear your opinions on this. But to me, this really showcases like the promise of the character of Dax. I think a lot of people don't like this one because the guy is bland, and you know what I mean. So it's not the romance might not seem as like steamy or hot, as some others, which I totally get, and I kind of agree. He's not my favorite first choice either. But it's really not about the guy. It's about Dax, like I said, she's unconstrained. So she can afford to make this choice to experience this entire different way of being. And she does that freely and quickly and without any reservation, for someone who has 7 lifetimes of experience, think about what you could add to that. Existing for 60 years as pure consciousness seems like a very cool thing to add to that legacy. And so I understand her here, her willingness to just jump right into this relationship and to experience this, because it's how many chances does Dax have to do something completely new like that, and that's why that's one of the reasons this guy's appealing to her. I mean, and also they both kind of exist outside of time in different ways. They just happen to, they kind of get each other right away. And I find it really fun to watch. One of the things I like watching about Jadzia is watching somebody who has the ability to make these kinds of ridiculous, rash choices that I would never have the luxury of doing, because I have a limited amount of time on this earth. I don't have lifetimes of experiences, and I have to pick and choose what I can say yes to. And I find it refreshing to be able to watch somebody make a decision like that, which would seem rash if anybody else made it.
I love it. That is a great defense of Meridian, because my normal critique, because it doesn't rank very high on TrekRanks. I'm pretty
it's not one of my all-time favorites either.
Pretty sure it's in the bottom 5. But
really that bad?
But the thing I always critiqued it for was I just never bought that she would give all that up so quickly, yada yada. But your defense of it, actually, that's a great point. She's got all this time, and she can add that to her 350 years as Dax. That's a really, really good point. The thing I always liked about this episode is how much, to me, it helps inform Rejoined. When she's basically going to make the same decision. She's going to do the same thing. She's going to give all that up.
Leads with her heart.
Yeah, leads with her heart. Yeah. So, Ariel, what's your take on Meridian?
Wow, what a pick. Definitely not something I was expecting to hear today.
Me neither.
I can't say it's among my favorite episodes, but I definitely enjoy watching it, and your defense of it is extraordinary.
Yeah, that's really good, Jen. I love it.
You guys are very diplomatic.
No, it's sincere. That's it really does make a lot of sense when you frame it that way. So I've never heard that before. I love it.
Thank you.
Ariel, how about you? What is your number 5 pick?
Sure. So my 5 words in a hashtag are Dax Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, hashtag DS9, really needed a counselor. And this is this is season 7, episode 3, After Image.
I love it.
I love this episode. I feel like it's the first time we see Ezri start to come into her own by seeing her thrown into Deep Space Nine and interacting with all of the characters we've come to know and love. And we know how they would interact with Jadzia, but we have no idea how they would mesh with Ezri. And this gives us such an opportunity to see both Ezri and characters we know and love in a different light. And I also especially love how she interacts with Garrick. I think that is just a fantastic dichotomy of those two characters.
I love this episode. It really is, again, we talked about it. It's kind of the first point where they're really trying to introduce us to Ezri, and they do a really good job of not just making it kind of a quaint little story about fixing Garrick or whatever, because there's no easy answers on it. And I really, really appreciate Nicole DeBerre's performance in this episode. I love what it says about Ezri and kind of sets up her character for the whole season as a counselor, because you're right, the show kind of needed that. It was a nice addition for season 7. Jen, what's your take on After Image?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you're so right. I mean, DS9 needed a counselor. It's interesting to see her struggle with oh my gosh, I can't even imagine if you had been prepared for this, let alone her just being thrown into this and having to see Worf, having to see Julian and Quark, and it's just I think After Image does a really great job of showing how Ezri, independent of Jadzia, can fit into this, into the setting, because sure, she's struggling with all that extra stuff of being a Dax, but the way she reacts to things is different than Jadzia would react to the same situation. So it really does a good job of laying down like her personality and how she's going to be in the workplace part of Deep Space Nine, you know?
Yeah.
And it does a really good job. It's a great pick.
Congratulations, Lieutenant. I want you to take a good look around. You have just agreed to take responsibility for the mental health of everyone in this room. You have your work cut out for you.
Well, I'm glad they made you a lieutenant. It would have been hard taking advice from an ensign.
Since when did you take advice from anyone? Why don't you join us for dinner tonight?
I don't want to put you out.
Oh, no, please come. It'll take the pressure off me. All he does is sit there and count how many times I chew.
Oh.
I'll be there.
Yeah, this episode just screams, I am not Jadzia.
Right, yes.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yeah, and it's good that they did that so early on in the season.
Yeah.
I can't get the thought of, boy, Deep Space Nine really needed a counselor. It's like such a godsend for them in season 7. They really
it's remarkable that they made it this far.
Yeah,
Right?
seriously. Okay, my round 5 pick, 5 words and a hashtag. The making of a Trill hashtag. Dax defends Curzon, and it's season 1, episode 8. It's Dax, and I find this episode really interesting, and it's kind of a bit. It's a tone setter for the character that shows the complexity of what it means to be a Trill. I didn't think this one was going to make my list until I rewatched it during my TrekRanks homework. And this one really does stand the test of time. So I've always thought of it as one of those early episodes where the writers hadn't yet kind of figured out Jadzia's character. And that's definitely true because she barely speaks in the episode and is super stoic and emotionless, except near the end, we actually start getting our first glimpses of Terry Farrell's character. First time we mentioned Terry Farrell. Duh. She's awesome as Dax. Her character, her personality starts coming through and helping to find Jadzia in this scene where her and Cisco are kind of going through the talking about their history together and laughing while he's imploring her to defend herself in this trial. And she talks about what it means to carry the shame of Curzon's indiscretions. It's really, really good scene between those two. It's a great Dax episode. The trial episode angle of the storytelling is a fascinating take on Trills and their society and what makes a person or a different person or a joined person, all that stuff. I think that part really stands the test of time. And I didn't realize until I was done watching it, like this is the last script from the great DC Fontana for Star Trek. So
it is?
She wrote it with Peter Allen Fields. And I was like, of course, that last scene with the two of them, with Cisco and Dax as friends talking about what this means is really, really good stuff. So, Jen, what's your take on the episode Dax?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the trial, quote unquote, framework is a good way to let's answer all your questions that you have about what Trill actually is and what it means to be joined, right. To get to know the character better. Because it's Jadzia, obviously, like you said, she feels the shame of Curzon's indiscretion. And I mean, in her memories as Curzon, you could see her wanting to keep the secret. But she's Jadzia now, and she's deciding that her loyalties are to Curzon and this woman he loved. And that's a great way to show a lot about this character in a very short amount of time. And the stuff you said about the scenes with her and Cisco, I mean, Dax and Cisco is my favorite friendship in all of Star Trek. And it's seen here, you can see how it's going to transfer, from his friendship with Curzon as a mentor-mentee into this, what it becomes with Jadzia, which is really beautiful. And it's kind of like the start of it here. So that's cool. Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I like it.
Note to self, when we do top 5 Star Trek friendships, don't have Jen on, or we're going to have the number one same pick. Ariel, what is your take on the episode Dax?
Deep Space Nine wasted literally no time to embrace one of the best Star Trek tropes of the trial.
Yes.
And I think this is a great episode. I think it's very underrated. I definitely wouldn't have put it on my list today but I absolutely love it. I'm so glad somebody else picked it.
Yeah, it's curious because when I was going into it, I was thinking, this is one of those ones where it's not really Jadzia. It's like they're feeling out Dax.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the end, I was like, you know what? I think it kind of is. I think it kind of is. This is like the beginning of them starting to get it right with her.
It feels like Dax before Dax found Dax, but it's still a great episode.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's a good point too. Because in the first few episodes, they have her more of like a straight laced kind of
she's playing
by the book sciencey lady.
Yeah, more Vulcan kind of.
Yeah, and then here you could see. I mean, she is, like as Ariel said, badass.
Yep.
But by choosing to remain loyal to Curzon and his the woman he loved, and that is the beginning of Jadzia's character as we know it.
Love it.
Okay, let's go to round 4. Jen, what is your round 4 pick?
Okay, my round 4 pick. 5 words. Confront isn't just for Tongo. #Inner Demons. And this is season 7, episode 13, Field of Fire.
Ooh.
So I had to have an Ezri specific episode, and to me, this is Ezri's finest hour. On the surface, it's just a good episode to begin with because I enjoy a good murder mystery to begin with.
I mean, you can't go wrong with a murderous Vulcan, right?
That's cool. And R.I.P. Aurelio because I love him. But so as an episode, it's an episode I enjoy. But I love what it says about Ezri Dax here because this is again like Ariel said, determined for her word, and she's so determined to solve this murder that she's willing to bring out Duran. And to me, this is interesting because this is something that even Jadzia wasn't ready to do. Jadzia tried to, she brought his memories in, but then she tried to suppress it, or not think about it, set beyond like maybe playing some music and things like that. And Ezri, on the other hand, brought it out. I have these negative characteristics here. I can actually use it as an advantage, and I'm going to do it. Yeah. She taps into it, even though it's horribly, psychologically hard and troubling, as of course it would be. And I think that's so brave of her to do. And she's and Ezri's badass in this episode, I think, and she does it, and it worked, And between her skills as a counselor, with her skills with psychology, and with her bringing out all of her firsthand knowledge of what a killer might be thinking, she solves the crime, and it's really cool and badass. And she looks amazing in that weird monocle sight, holding that rifle too.
So good.
So I love that episode.
That's super cool. This is a great pick. It's definitely Ezri's. It's probably her finest hour. I mean, it's really, really impressive tapping into what we've learned about her and what we still learn about her in the episode. And I love seeing Duran because Duran has a real. The menace there is real. Like you feel it. Like when Duran comes out, it's like, there's jeopardy. Like something could happen to somebody because this dude is not a good person. Ariel, what's your take on Field of Fire?
Oh my God, I love this episode. It's definitely my favorite Ezri episode. Doesn't quite fit my prime directive for today, which was major character moments, but I love Ezri and I love this episode. I think it's so fun to see the kind of inner strength it takes to wrangle Duran here, something that Jadzia really never tried to do. And I cannot say enough how much I love this.
Yeah, that's super cool. Okay, let's go to your number 4 pick, Ariel. What do you got?
Sure. So my 5 words in a hashtag are Trill initiates don't play Tongo, #bring back Klingon chef. And my number 4 pick is season 2, episode 17, Playing God.
Oh, this is fun. I just rewatched this. I love it.
Yeah, I rewatched this one specifically as part of my TrekRanks homework. I did not expect it to make my list. It was not one of my initial picks that came to mind, but I loved it. It held up so much better than I thought it did. It's probably the first really strong Dax episode where we see her assert herself with so much personality. And I love that because early Dax is, well, inarguably very different from season 6 Jadzia. And I think this episode is one of the earliest hints of just how incredibly fun a character she's going to be. I also just think it's such an underappreciated episode.
I think you nailed it. So whereas I think Dax was maybe the very beginning of where we start to see Terry Farrell and the Dax personality coming out, this is the first episode where you see it kind of fully formed all the way through. Because the very beginning when she's got that dude in her apartment who's leaving, and she's like, "Hey, Arvin."
Arjun.
Arjun, yeah. Like, "Hey, Arjun, come on in." And I mean, it's just free flowing Dax.
Can you make me a black hole?
Yeah, right.
A black hole, right?
Exactly.
And it opens with her playing tango, which is just so perfect.
I'm sorry. I thought this was Lieutenant Dax's quarters.
She's in the shower.
Oh, well, in that case...
Expecting you?
Yes. My name is Arjun. She told me I should be here at 0800...
Is that Arjun? You're early again, Arjun. We're gonna have to work on that.
I can come back.
Don't be silly. Come in. I'll only be a minute. It always takes me longer to get ready as a female.
I have to go. I have to be at Colony 4 by tomorrow.
When's my rematch?
Well, I'll be back next week.
It was fun. Brutal, but fun. Safe trip. The replicator makes a decent citrus blend.
Thanks. But I've already had something to eat.
Would you get me a black hole?
A what?
A black hole. It's a Ferengi drink. A bartender I've known for 100 years introduced it to Curzon. Or was it Leela? Well, it was ages ago. Try one. You might like it.
Computer black hole.
Playing tango and then of course the eating Klingon food and hanging out at the Klingon restaurant.
Singing Klingon opera with Klingon Chef, who is, by the way, my single favorite Deep Space Nine character.
Love the Klingon Chef. That came up with in our top 5 songs, right, Jen? You picked you picked this episode. Yeah.
I did. I love this episode.
The nuance of her dealing with kind of her own candidacy in Curzon and how she relays that to Arjun here. And there's another great Cisco Jadzia scene in this episode. I love it. It's a great pick. I totally agree with you too. Last thing, this is one of those episodes that, man, I didn't really love it. For years I was like, it's just a kind of throwaway. I kind of love this episode now. I go back to it a lot. So
yeah, I was surprised that I liked it so much in my rewatch a couple days ago. That was so good. Jen,
how about you? What's your take on Playing God?
Yeah, I love this episode. I think it's underrated. I enjoy going back to this one a lot, and it's fun to see Jadzia be so badass in every way in this episode.
Total badass. All right, my round 4 pick. I thought of this one early, and then I eliminated it because I just started to get deeper, and it was going to be my special shout out for like the entire time I was working on my list. And then like the last hour, I was like, no, I have to have that on my list. I love this episode, even though I pick it all the time on TrekRanks. 5 words and a hashtag. What if it's smart fungus? Hashtag Dax going to Dax. And it is Deep Space Nine Season 5, Episode 22, Children of Time, an all-time classic episode.
Yes.
And I don't think people realize this is a Dax episode. It starts with Dax just being classic Dax, super inquisitive. She's the one that convinces Cisco to go investigate this energy barrier and the life form readings they picked up. That's when she says, what if it's smart fungus? It's just classic Dax. And there's all this great stuff happening on the planet with Worf and the Klingons and Odo and Kira. But Dax meeting Dax and actually interacting with Dax is kind of gets forgotten. And Yedrin, I don't know about his heart, but I mean, he kind of does lead with his heart because he wants to save his planet. But he's got this, there's a history of Dax that can be kind of a jerk in terms of being very focused. Like Curzon was kind of a jerk. Tarius was kind of a jerk. Yedrin fits right in. He's manipulating the situation. He's lying to Jadzia. He's lying to Cisco. He's putting on a big dog and pony show to get them to think there's some kind of energy discharge that's going to result in a duplicate ship. But the reality is he's lying, and he just wants to save his colony. So it's just really interesting to see Dax still alive, the two of them interacting. And there's one of these great Dax moments, and this is Terry Farrell, Jadzia Dax at her best, is when Yedrin's trying to convince Benjamin that that they are who they say they are. And he says, I could tell you something that only Curzon would know. Remember that dancer on whatever? And then Terry Farrell's in the background and her eyes light up. And she looks at Ben and she's like, whoa. And Ben's like, yeah, okay. Don't tell that story.
I know that face, Benjamin. You're still not convinced that we're telling you the truth. All right, if you want, I could tell you something that only Curzon would know. Do you remember that dancer that you met on Pelio Station? The one
that'll do.
It's just really priceless. I love it. So I had to pick this because of Yedrin Dax, played by Gary Frank. Really, really good performance. Ariel, what's your take on Children of Time?
Oh, fantastic. I wouldn't have immediately called it a Dax episode. When you put it that way, it is absolutely a Dax episode. I love this episode. It's one of my friend's favorite episodes of all of Star Trek, and I can totally see why.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I adore this episode. And yeah, Yedrin has had, 200 years to feel guilty about the accident. So yeah, you could see how that pain and that amount of time can change Dax, how it's changed Dodo. And I love seeing Dax interact with Dax. It's also interesting to see Sisko interact with Dax. And when he says goodbye to Yedrin at the end is something that I always remember as a really interesting Dax moment, watching Jadzia watch Sisko forgive Yedrin and give him a hug, and this, you know what I mean? And the same kind of real hug that old friends give each other. And it's an interesting moment. And he is leading with his heart. That doesn't always lead to good things. That's not always, you don't always do the thing when you lead with your heart. I think Ezri, someone who will tend to do the right thing when she leads with her heart, and Jadzia, Curzon, Yedrin, maybe some of the other ones, not so much. But yeah, I think that's a great pick. Great Dax episode.
Awesome. All right, let's go to the soup round. Jen, what's your number 3 pick?
Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment. Jolan Trill.
Okay, soup round pick. Get those torpedoes ready. Okay, the name's Dax, Jadzia Dax. # the perfect host. This is season 2, episode 17, Playing God.
Oh, love it.
And the reason I made it a James Bond reference there is because this episode shows Jadzia being perfect at everything. We went through it earlier. She plays tango, she has this sexy guy in her room, and then she kills a bull, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The chef, and a song that she taught him, and and it goes on and on. And and it just makes me laugh because it just showcases how great she's at everything, and you could just see the initiate get more and more like flummoxed about this not being what he expected as a host. And it always gets me that first act of her doing everything, and then she sciences. That's the one thing we didn't talk about yet, is how she sciences. She discovers a proto-universe in this episode, which of course she does.
Just casual things that we don't have to mention.
Right.
Casual.
Well, and it's interesting because I'd like to talk about that, because she's the science officer, and she's, when I was thinking about what I was going to pick on this list, I went through and I was like, well, what are some of her greatest scientific accomplishments? And she has so many, and she saves the day frequently, but they kind of blend into it, because it's like, oh, of course Jadzia will just solve the problem, because she's so hyper competent at the science that it almost fades into the background of her big, bold personality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And you know, she discovers the proto universe, and then she comes up with the solution to how to get it to not destroy everything. So it's just all around a great Dax episode. So
awesome.
So it's a worthy duplicate.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely a worthy duplicate, and one that, like I said, appreciate more and more now. Any final thoughts on playing God, Ariel?
No, I think we've said it, but I just love that episode.
And she even kills a vole.
That scene cracks me up.
So good.
Just hands it to Arjun.
So
Poor guy.
She's like, "Oh, what you guys doing? Killing voles? Oh, I'll get in there."
Imagine someone handed you a raccoon.
Oh yeah,
stunning voles. I forgot they were stunning them at that point.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, they were stunning. They weren't killing them. That's right. We would not approve of that. Ariel, how about you? What is your super round pick?
Sure. So my 5 words in a hashtag are House of Martok hazing rituals, #2 Klingon hearts. And this is You Are Cordially Invited.
Yes.
Oh, what a good episode. I absolutely love seeing Jadzia hold her own against Sorella. What a fantastic episode. And as a side note, there are very few things that are more relatable than Dax needing her morning after Raktajino. So that just never. This episode is so good because it's so important for plot development, and it's such a big Dax and Worf episode. It just does so much for the overall arc of the series, but at the same time, it is so funny. It always cracks me up. Love this.
It's such a good episode. It just works on every level.
Oh, my favorite gag is Morn and the bully and dancing. It just cracks me up. It's not even that big, but it makes me laugh so much.
And Nog dancing too.
Yes. Her party is just hilarious.
The way she stands up to Sorella is I love that so much. Jen, what's your take on You Are Cordially Invited?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, how she stands up to Sorella. I love it. I'm not a fan of Sorella because she lost Martok's Targ on purpose. I hate her for that. Yep. So it's fun to see. But it's just so funny because she gets her in these little ways, you know, like she finds out the real family history. It's a little bit more suspect than Sorella wants to believe, which is so funny. And then the confrontation at the party is fun, and Ryzian Slut is my band name if I ever make a band.
Oh my god!
But then the thing I really like, if we're just talking about the character of Dax, is she's going through all this because she loves Worf, and Worf wants a traditional Klingon wedding, and that is fine with her. And so she has a moment of pride that she just she's had enough, but then she goes through with it, and she does her thing, and she looks stunning in that ridiculous Klingon wedding dress.
So good.
Fantastic.
Classic costume. Great pick.
So good. I'm so glad you picked this because not on my list, and I really, really was considering it. Fantastic. All right, close out round 3 with my pick. 5 words in a hashtag. The Hands of a Surgeon, classic 23rd century design. Yes. And it is, of course, Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 6, Trials and Tribulations. Just all these Dax moments throughout this episode. There's no way it wasn't going to be on my list. And this is the real Dax stuff. This is not necessarily, most of this is Dax, not Jadzia, because it's Dax that lived way back in the 23rd century. So it was Emily who experienced those Hands of a Surgeon from Dr. McCoy. And it was Emily who loved
the gymnast,
the classic 23rd century design.
That cracks me up.
Emily the gymnast.
Well, the nearest thing I can figure out is that they're born pregnant, which seems to be quite a time saver.
Leonard McCoy.
It seems they're
I met him when he was a student at Old Miss.
Who met him, Curzon?
No, my host at the time was Emily. She was on Earth judging a gymnastics competition. I had a feeling he'd become a doctor. He had the hands of a surgeon.
Yeah, so, I mean, pretty sure it was mostly Jadzia that loved Spock and those eyes, but there's just one scene after another where Jadzia steals the show, including when she works the science and quotes the famous Spock line of 1,771,561, starting with one dribble with an average litter of 10 every 12 hours in 3 days. I love this episode. Jadzia and Dax at their absolute best, so it was definitely going to be on my list. Trials and Tribulations. Jen, what's your take on this one?
Oh, yeah. Doesn't she just have a sparkle in her eye during this entire episode?
Sparkle, yes.
Yeah, you mentioned everything, all the great lines with Jadzia, and she's having so much fun, and she's the stand-in for us in the episode, and because we're enjoying seeing all this stuff too, and just that line about McCoy just is hilarious, it does get more hilarious the more you think about who it was and when it happened and all that stuff, and it's fun. It's a great fun pick.
Ariel, how about you?
Oh, awesome. I like the scene where we see Jadzia in the TOS uniform just popping in and saying, "And women wore less." And that is...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what I picture for Jadzia in this episode, because it made me laugh so much the first time I saw it.
And she's showing off her beehive.
Oh, priceless.
So cute.
So good. All right, let's go to round 2. Jen, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, my number 2 pick, winning friends and influencing people, # more Klingon than Klingon. This is season 5, episode 21, Soldiers of the Empire.
Wow. I did not think of this one, and it's brilliant.
Fantastic.
She's so good in this.
She's so good in this. This is one of Jadzia's finest hours, I think, too. Because she steps into this Klingon ship and fits in right away, makes friends right away, throws the guy out of her seat and, acts the way you're supposed to act on a Klingon ship, and brings them blood wine and, and gets their trust. And she listens to them, and she susses out right away what the problem is and what the dangers are, what's brewing among the crew. And she is vital here because Martok and Worf have zero idea that there are even issues in the crew, that they could be facing a mutiny, that there could, that these Klingons are so disheartened and so just beaten down from all these losses that they're just going to explode into violence. And neither one of them have any idea, but Jadzia right away figures out the deal, figures out what's going on, and is able to counsel Worf and kind of push him into doing what he needs to do to help Martok and to help the crew. And it's really, we see Jadzia in other episodes. I hope someone will pick one where she's captaining the Defiant, because she's brilliant there too, but she's brilliant here too when she's not in charge, but she's behind the scenes making things work. Yeah. And she's brilliant in this one. And I always love watching her in this episode.
This is a brilliant pick. It's so good. I did not think of it. I should have, because it's such a huge part of her.
Yeah.
And just how she ends up on the ship is so great.
Right. I guess she's just like, I'm coming.
And Worf's like, I don't like long goodbyes. She's like, yeah, I'm coming with you.
I do not wish to have a lengthy goodbye.
I wasn't planning on having one.
Good. Jadzia.
Yes.
I think it would be better to part company here on the station.
Oh, I'm coming with you.
What?
The Rotaran is short-handed, and I still have 4 months leave coming. And I've already cleared it with Martok and Benjamin. I'm your new science officer.
Why did you not tell me?
It's more fun this way. And after getting a good look at a couple members of the Rotaran's crew, I don't think we're going to be having a lot of fun on this mission.
This is such a brilliant pick. It's so Jadzia. Such a strong episode for her. Ariel, what's your take on this one? Soldiers of the Empire.
Jadzia. Anytime we get Jadzia being Klingon with the Klingons is a good time, and this episode is no exception. Totally excellent pick.
Jadzia being Klingons with the Klingons. I love it. Okay, Ariel, how about you? What's your number 2 pick?
Sure. My number 2 pick, Space Sickness Won't Stop Her, # Talk to Me, You Coward. And this is Penumbra. So this episode is when Ezri goes after Worf. And I just absolutely love it because I think there's a quote from Cisco somewhere in this episode. She's a Dax. She doesn't think, she just does. And it ties Ezri back to, well, being a Dax. And I also love that it further explores her relationship with Worf because obviously it is incredibly confusing to think you lost your love and then she's kind of half back. So this is just a fantastic episode. And my hashtag referred to one line towards the end of the episode where Ezri actually calls Worf a coward for refusing to talk to her.
Yep.
And I can think of only one other time where Worf gets called a coward by a non-Klingon. And that is in First Contact when Picard calls him a coward. And it had the same kind of like gut punch feeling to it because we know that those words have weight for a Klingon.
I'm not reading you very well. There's interference.
Dax, turn that ship around and get back here.
What was that, Benjamin?
Cut it out, old man. I'm not buying it. I gave you an order, Lieutenant.
Don't worry, sir. I'll find him.
Penumbra is a brilliant pick. This is on my list for my toughest cuts. I love that she stands up to Worf in this one. And I mean, you just couldn't have said it better. And she's the one who's, like you said, badass and brave enough to go out there and determined to find and save Worf on her own. So it's amazing.
Yeah, what a move, right? To do that. She's so brave. She doesn't always get enough credit for being brave. And she's the one who, what she does with Jadzia's memories for Worf is sure she's confused, like, because that's part of her character arc. She's confused and she's like, do I have feelings for Worf or is this just Jadzia? But also, but beyond that, she knows that Worf needs closure. And she's going to get it with him, whether he is willing to do it or not, because she knows him so well and she knows how grumpy he is. And you know what I mean? And how hard it's going to be, but she knows that he needs it.
Like I said, DS9 needed a counselor.
Right. Exactly.
So true. Yeah.
Exactly.
A little bit overcomplicated in the case of Worf. Definitely needed some counseling.
Exactly.
Another good example of that. All right. Let's close out round 2 with my 5 words in a hashtag. Revenge best served with Dax. Hashtag in honor to our cause. Of course, it's season 2, episode 19, Blood Oath.
Yes.
And it's Dax. I mean, Dax basically, or Terry Farrell, is in every scene of this episode. It's a real high point for Terry Farrell and her performance. My favorite scene in this episode is when Dax confronts Koloth and they fight with the Bat'leth. And this is like the first time we really see Jadzia as a badass with a Bat'leth in her hand. We've never really seen her in this kind of Klingon light, I don't know, just in terms of the physical prowess. And it's so awesome because basically Koloth is saying, you're not coming with us, you're not strong enough. And it's just a super well staged fight with, Dax going into just full badass mode and eventually losing her blade to Koloth, who then welcomes her to the Blood Oath. I love it. And she starts by, I'm going to play that clip for you right now.
Computer, I want a Klingon Bat'leth, tip to tip 116 centimeters, weight 5.3 kilos, with an exterior hand gripping diameter of 5 centimeters. Blades, composite baconite.
Ah, a warrior's configuration. Now, what are you going to do with it?
I'm going to fight you.
What a great scene.
That's right.
Such a great scene. It really, really is.
So good.
Blood Oath. What's your take on this one, Jenn?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is just a badass adventure story with 4 badass Klingons. She's an official Klingon in this. She is in this episode, but it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch her uncertainty in the beginning because this is a big This is a big deal. This is different. I always think about how she reacted in the episode Dax when she had to deal with Curzon's crap versus in this episode, she's to deal with, stuff from Curzon, stuff in her past from Curzon. And this, it's a little bit more serious when it involves going on a manhunt the way that they're doing here. And it's interesting to watch her struggle with that when, after even, she's obviously proved that she's a worthy person to go on, with that clip you played and everything. And it's good that they took her along, because doesn't she science something when they get to the compound?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, she floods the atmosphere with something to knock out all the phasers.
Yeah, because not only is she a badass in the Klingon sense of, wielding a bat'leth like nobody's business, but also she uses what's unique to her science knowledge to make this something that's accomplishable. So Jadzia brings everything she has to this episode. I love it.
And Kang loves that. She's like, basically, what's better than an honorable death, Kang? An honorable victory. So here's how we can make that happen.
What a quote. Love that.
So good.
And this episode is one of the most rewatchable episodes.
Oh yeah,
to me too. Like that's one I would just put on randomly, because it's just so engrossing every time, no matter how many times I've seen it.
So much fun. Seeing, and for me, an old school TOS fan, to see John Colicos, William Campbell, and Michael Ansari again in those roles was just so exciting. When this came out, I couldn't believe it. So. Okay, let's go to round one. Jen, what's your number one Dax episode?
Feeling like a new man. #Tranya. It's season 3, episode 25, Facets.
Okay, Facets is finally on the board. Love it.
Yeah, and
I was waiting for this one.
Yeah, the reason this is my number one for Dax episodes is because I feel like seeing all the hosts made me appreciate the choices that Terry Farrell made and later Nicole DeBoer made with how they play things. Because you could see, it's interesting to meet them and kind of see how the aspects of their personality, can show up in interesting ways in other episodes. And I get a kick out of that. I'm also a huge fan of Curzon Odo. Love the look.
Good.
The look is outstanding. I also understand Curzon Odo. I feel like it's very relatable. I could see why Odo would want to stay like that. I could see why Curzon would want to stay like that. Like, to me, I understand it. I don't agree with them. Is like saying we're going to do it, but I understand the impulse to want that, because they each bring something to each other that's really interesting. And I think I'm not as big of a fan of the Curzon being in love with Jadzia thing.
I don't like that. I don't like that. That's why I didn't pick this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we allowed to say we don't like things on TrekRanks?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right.
It's just so rare. It's so rare. What could you possibly not like? Sorry, keep going.
But I don't care for that. But it's just that's just like a little almost afterthought at the end, so it doesn't ruin the episode for me. I just kind of like, okay, whatever with that. But but everything before and after that, I really like. I love the idea of now both Odo and Jadzia getting something valuable out of this whole thing.
Right.
Odo has the memories of being Curzon Odo, and Jadzia has memories of what it's like to be a changeling now, and that's so cool. I mean, what a unique experience to have. And I just think that's just interesting. That's just really interesting to me.
That is a cool reveal at the end that she has that experience. So
yeah.
Ariel, what's your take on this one?
Oh, I'm so glad you picked this, because it was the toughest cut for me. Yeah. I love this episode. I love all of the hosts for Dax. Love getting to see Quark as one of the Dax. That's so funny. And Curzon Odo is so cool to see. And I agree. I totally can understand where he's coming from, even if I don't at all agree with that.
Right.
Great episode.
I'm glad this got picked. This would have been quite an episode if Facets had not been picked. The thing I'll say, kind of the way I did about Meridian informing rejoined. I think this one, when I see Odo making this choice, I'm pissed off. I'm like, that is so uncool to Jadzia.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a precursor of the choices he made in season 6 when he joined with the founder and betrayed everybody. So,
for sure. I never thought of that.
There's a continuity there because at one point he apologizes at the end. He apologizes like, hey, I get it if you're pissed at me, but I just really, and I'm just like, no, man, that is not okay.
And the choice he made in Children of Time too.
Oh, true.
Odo has a long list of choices like that. Yeah,
I do love Odo, but man, does he make questionable decisions.
I do too, but those are 3 really bad ones. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Ariel's number 1. What do you got, Ariel?
Sure. So you're going to need those Defiant torpedoes because Curzon, my beloved old friend, # it's Jadzia now. And my pick is season 2, episode 19, Blood Oath. What can I say?
Fantastic. I love it. This one should be a duplicate.
Yeah, absolutely. What can I say?
Good words too in a hashtag.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about what I would say about this as my first pick, I immediately thought it's going to get picked before me. So I don't even have to think about it. But what a fantastic episode. And it's so cool to see Jadzia coming into her own and interacting with, Kankor and Koloth, because that just adds such a weight to her character. To people who have seen the original series and understand like the intensity of these Klingons. And all of a sudden we have our Jadzia with them, and it's fantastic. And it's just I agree, it's such a rewatchable episode. This is one that I'll put on if I'm having a bad day in the background.
It's so good. I mean, I love your 5 words on a hashtag. Jen, any final thoughts on Blood Oath?
Badass Jadzia. What's more to say? We covered it.
Does anybody think she would have killed the albino if Kang had not got to the albino first?
Ooh, yes. Good question. I think she would have. I do think she has it in her.
Yeah.
I think she was prepared for the consequences of that when she went into it. I think she would have done it.
Yeah, I kind of lean toward that as well. Like she was hesitating, but in the end, she would not have let them down.
I think that's why she was hesitating about going on the mission in general, because she knew that she would, if she did it, she would go all in. She's not going to, in the middle of the battle, let those guys down.
Super cool. Okay.
Made that choice when she got on the ship to go.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to close it out with, I got a deep cut at my number 1. So I'm glad this one hasn't come up yet. 5 words and a hashtag. Someone a little more entertaining, hashtag a little more fun. And it is Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 3, Looking for Parmok in all the wrong places. To me, this is Dax at her most confident. I love her so much in this episode. She's helping Quark. She's guiding and advising him. At the same time, she's watching Worf, understanding where he's at. She's kind of playing, the helpful foil to both of them all the time, understanding what she wants and her desires. And she's pursuing Worf during all this, but she's kind of doing it in a little bit of a take it or leave it way. Like if he doesn't come around, she's fine. If he comes around, great. It's just a really cool, strong vibe that no one's cooler than Jadzia. I just love it. Right to the end, where she basically seduces Worf and finally opens his eyes. Sorry, Ariel, go.
Oh, it's the sequel we didn't know we needed to. I just love this episode.
House of Quark. Yeah.
House of Quark. Yeah. When you see House of Quark, you never expect a sequel, but then there's a sequel, and it's a Jadzia episode.
Yeah,
awesome.
I love it because this is another one where you don't really think of it as Jadzia episode. You're thinking Quark, you're thinking Worf, but Jadzia is pulling all the strings, and she knows exactly what she wants at the end of this, and she gets it. And I love that. Jen, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, and Worf is so clueless, doesn't she have to literally bite his ear or something?
Right.
Oh my God.
He just doesn't get it. She's literally jumping on top of him and in a Klingon way, this is another episode that's just is so rewatchable to me. This one's
so
just pure fun, and she knows what she wants, and she's she's willing to humor him with his feelings for Grilka, and realizing that it's silly anyway, it's not going to happen. So it's like, she knows how it's going to end up.
And she's calling Worf out. He acts like he's a traditional Klingon, but she's like, this guy, he's not a traditional Klingon. And I love when she says, he describes Grilka, and she's like, it sounds like you're describing a statue. What would you do with a woman like that? Put her on a pedestal and clean her every week?
Right.
She's like, if I were in your shoes, I'd be looking for someone a little more entertaining, a little more fun. And Worf's like, you're not in my shoes. And what does Dax say? You'd be amazed at what I could do in a pair of size 18 boots.
That's a great line.
Oh my God.
This does showcase her cool. This episode,
it really does.
I was insecure about my word for Jadzia being badass, but as the show has gone on, it's
she's so badass.
So badass.
I thought that word was too simple. It's perfect.
No, it's perfect for her. Yeah.
All right.
She's so badass. She doesn't even really have a character arc. Because she already starts out like badass. She starts out badass. She's badass all the way through, and she's badass until the episode we shall not speak its name.
Until the end. That will be mentioned in my secondary systems. But let's start with you, Jen. What do you got? What's your? I'll tell you why in a minute.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Jen, what do you got?
I'm interested to hear that. Okay, so I am very bummed that Rejoined wasn't on anyone's
This is
list.
a major bummer. That's the one I cut at the last minute. That's our
major bummer.
That's the one I cut at the last minute.
Yeah, same here.
That's our major bummer here because not only, she leads with her heart, like we've been saying here, but also this romance, this is the one, like, it's so relatable, even though no one in the world has ever been in this situation before,
right.
But it's still so relatable to, the human experience of a lost love. And it's played on both sides just so well that you can feel their emotions through the screen, and it hurts my heart every time. And the very end, she's, standing on the top of the promenade and watching her leave. And oh man, it's a brilliant episode.
Shout out to Avery Brooks, director, because he really did a great job with that and bringing out the emotion. It's an awesome episode. All right, what else you got, Jen?
And then I also, I really think she's fun in Jadzia in The Sword of Kahless.
That's on my list too for secondary systems.
Yeah, she's fun, and it's fun when she's had enough of these guys. Like at the very end, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys are the worst. And again, she has to take things into her own hands.
How about you, Ariel?
Well, besides the ones we've already mentioned, I want to bring up Behind the Lines. This is a small moment, not so much an episode for Jadzia, but at the very end, she repeats Sisko's speech from the beginning of the episode about the spent warp coil, but in her own words. It gives me the chills every time. And then the exchange with the exchange of, they're a great crew, the best with Sisko. Fantastic. And we get to see Dax as captain of the Defiant. O'Brien walks in holding the spent warp coil and actually refers to her as captain, which is amazing.
I love that. I definitely considered picking some of those season 6 episodes. I actually was going to pick, I was going to look it up, but I never did. Can't remember the name of the book, but one of the Dominion War books had, she goes on a mission that they don't show in one of those season 6 arcs.
Yeah, that's this one, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Behind the Lines. Yeah, and they don't show the mission, but in this book, it's about that mission, and it's super cool because it's Jadzia, as captain of the Defiant. Super cool.
Unbelievable.
That's great.
And the other secondary system I really used this for just the moments because I ended up focusing on episodes for my 5 picks. And this is just the moment where Jadzia meets Worf in Way of the Warrior. Of course, you have the great scene with Kira. She hit Lancelot. Excellent. But it's so cool. And I don't know what she says to Worf in Klingon, but that's kind of the gag. And I love it.
I love that you picked that.
And is that the one where did she make him a mixtape in that one? Oh no, that's when he moves into the Defiant.
Yeah, that's later.
No, I love that moment. Yeah. She literally makes him a mixtape. Yeah. And he still doesn't get it.
So good. Okay, a few more on my list. I have Again, so I didn't pick Ezri, and I hate myself for it. When I was going down the list, I was always planning to pick an Ezri episode, and I didn't. So my toughest cuts were Penumbra and the Dogs of War. I love when Ezri takes down the Empire to Worf in the Dogs of War. When she's the one that gives that speech that convinces Worf to kill Gowron, basically. It's Ezri saying, the Empire is not what you think it is. It's corrupt, and there's no honor. And if a man of honor like you lets them get away with that, imagine what other people let them get away with.
We were talking about how Jadzia is always pulling strings in the background sometimes, and we almost forget how involved she is. And this is Ezri doing the same thing, coming through with literally the entire scope of the Klingon Empire. Yeah,
she sums up, 12 years of Star Trek in that moment. It's so great. Mm-hmm. I ended up picking mostly episodes as well instead of moments. If I had done moments, her banter with Cisco in A Pale Moonlight, where she's playing the Romulan. God, I love that moment.
Yeah, I had that on my list. You'd make a good Romulan. It's such a great moment. Yeah, I definitely had that. I don't know where it went. I'm looking at my secondary systems list right now, but that was totally incredible.
All right, and then my special shout out to Tears of the Prophets.
No,
2 points here, because first, it's so great when at the beginning she's with Worf and they're basically going to keep a secret, and then she's like, "We're going to have a baby," and Worf's like, "It's not a secret anymore." I love that moment. And then her final words are, "Our baby would have been so beautiful." Oh my God! So
what
sad.
Are you doing?
I know it's brutal, but
I have the chills right now. Why would you do this?
Powerful moment. So, okay, we're going to end on that terrible note, Moorhouse. Great job. Let's get into our regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, we're going to recap our picks. Jenn, break it down. Your 5 picks.
All right. Number 5 was Meridian. Number 4, Field of Fire. Number 3, Playing God. Number 2, Soldiers of the Empire. And number 1, Facets.
I love it. You had 2 from season 3, 1 from season 5, season 2, and an Ezri pick with season 7. Love it. Ariel, how about you?
Oh, my 5 picks were Afterimage, Playing God, You Are Cordially Invited, Penumbra, and Blood Oath.
I love it. You had 2 from season 2 and a season 6 pick, and then 2 from season 7. So 2 Ezri picks. And for my 5 picks, I started with number 5 was Dax. Number 4, Children of Time. Number 3, Trials and Tribulations. Number 2, Blood Oath. Number 1, Looking for Parmok in all the wrong places. So I had 2 from season 5, and then I had 3 from season 5 and 1 from season 1 and season 2. So I got a bunch of good stats here I tried to keep. So the starting point, I tried to do a breakdown of picks that were about Dax or picks that were mostly about the host. And it ended up being like almost a straight mix. It was 8 for Dax and 7 that was more about the host. Kind of hard to differentiate some of them, but we had 2 duplicates. Outside of Jadzia, we had 3 Ezri picks, 3 that could be called Curzon picks, 1 for Yedrin, 1 for Duran. We're going to give Duran a Field of Fire shout out. And then 1 for others, because that's Facets, because that's basically everybody. And our season breakdown, we had 1 from season 1 and season 6, 2 from season 3, 3 from season 7, our Ezri season, and then 4 each from season 2 and season 5. So, yeah, that means absolutely nothing. But, I love to relay those stats. Okay, we have once again been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Cause? Unknown.
Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. It's all the amazing feedback that we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's temporal distortion has sent us back to episode 112 in the top 5 one-off Klingons. We got 2 very cool, unique lists, which will end with one of the great deep cut picks in TrekRanks history. I love this. So first up, a list from Adam Sanders, who is at MetsFan1701. And his number 5, hashtag prosecutor Klingon, 5 words. He's a predator among sheep. Of course, it's Ch'pak from Rules of Engagement. Number 4, hashtag ferryman Klingon, 5 words. You must embrace your fate. And it's Kortar from Voyager's Barge of the Dead. Number 3, nurse, hashtag nurse Klingon. You are still fat, Kempek. And it's K-List, of course, from TNG Sins of the Father. Number 2, hashtag Manchurian Klingon, 5 words. Even holographic O'Brien must suffer. And it's Kel from TNG's The Mind's Eye. Number 1, undercover Klingon, 5 words. Get away from the blood wine. And it's Cisco from Apocalypse Rising, which is a great one-off Klingon. And then, yeah. All right. Then we have a list from Rich Masters at Masters Rich, who always has these great alliterative lists. This one, number 5, sinister scientist splits sullen scrapper, hashtag B'Elanna Torres. And it's the Klingon Torres from Voyager's Faces. These hashtags are brilliant. Number 4, agitated advocate of franchises, avowing archer, hashtag Attorney General. It's Kolos from Judgment. Number 3, booze hound brings Boimler babysitting bother, hashtag Braditude. It's Corinne from Lower Decks Envoys.
Awesome.
Braditude. Number 2, future family frets fatherly fate, hashtag Gah to the future. It's Kemtar from Firstborn from TNG. And I love this number 1 pick. So good. This is the 3rd core episode that we will mention today. Sarcastic servant stresses snarly soldier, hashtag Darrock in a hard place. And it's Darrock from Deep Space Nine's Once More Unto the Breach. I love that Klingon. That is a great one-off Klingon. He's kind of the guy that's keeping the paperwork on Martok's ship once more under the breach. So good.
Wow.
All those picks definitely good enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Dax episodes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. Or you can just DM me, record it yourself, and DM me. We can do it that way if it's easier. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing a super cool topic that I've been planning for like a year as our very special preview episode for the new series Star Trek Prodigy, which is coming out very soon. And of course, that series is going to give us the return of Kate Mulgrew as Janeway, and is an animated series taking place in the Delta Quadrant. So we are doing our top 5 Delta Quadrant species. That one is going to be so much fun. So Jenn and Ariel, if you had to choose one Delta Quadrant species off the top of your head for your list, what would it be, Jenn?
I'll tell you, I'm not picking the Tac because those guys are annoying as hell.
They're in the running. They are in the running for me.
Perfect.
Do we know the name of Phantome species? The ones that...
those were just the void aliens, right?
Yeah, the void aliens.
Yeah, the one...
Phantome species is a great pick.
Yeah,
I love that.
All communicating with the music. That's so cool.
That's such a great pick. I love it. Excellent. Ariel, how about you? There's so many to choose from.
Oh, there are so many, and I almost feel bad that I'm picking such a big one, but I love the Vidians as a concept. I think they were dramatically underutilized. I just think that it's such a cool concept to see a species that we know from background was once thriving and now has resorted to literally stealing organs. So that would be my pick, at least off the top of my head.
That's fantastic. One deep cut and one big one. So that's going to be a really fun episode. We are doing it. It's going to come out right before Prodigy debuts, and I'm super excited about that series.
So exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Yep, looks so good. All right, so before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Jenn, Tifft, and Ariel Kaye. Great to have you guys both on the show, and we're going to do that right now, Neelix.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
So any final Trek subspace communications either one of you guys want to relay before we depart? Jen.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was wonderful. I love Dax, and it was great to talk about the various incarnations of Dax for as long as we did. So thanks.
Dax is the best. Ariel, thanks for coming on. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, I had such a good time chatting with you too, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Love it. Thanks so much. All right. Just want to thank everyone for engaging with us again here on episode 120 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Take a good look, because this says something about us. That we're willing to fight, and that we'll keep on fighting until we can't fight anymore.
Yes, sir.
You don't throw something like this away.
No, sir.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
So let me get this straight. Dax's first host was named Leela, right?
I think so.
Leela Dax, that's right.
Then Leela dies, and the Dax symbiont goes on to a man named Tobin. And after Tobin dies, then it's on to Emily, then Tarius, Audred.
No. Audred, then Tarius.
Sorry. Audred, Tarius, Duran, Curzon, and then eventually Jadzia.
Right.